I used to believe I had everything figured out: a loving wife, two beautiful children, and a home filled with joy. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. I worked hard to provide for us, never complaining about long hours, and always made time for family dinners at 7 o'clock, bedtime stories by 8 o'clock. On Sundays, we'd watch movies together as a family. Simple routines, but they meant the world to me. But recently, something changed. My wife, the woman I had loved for over a decade, began to distance herself. At first, it wasn't obvious. Just a missed kiss here, a quiet dinner there. I convinced myself it was just stress or fatigue. She'll snap out of it, I told myself. But days turned into weeks, and her silence became louder than any argument we had ever had. No more good night kisses. No, how was your day? Just cold stares and endless scrolling on her phone. I noticed it all. The way she smiled at her screen, the constant text she couldn't ignore, the late nights when she claimed she was too tired to talk. Still, I held on, convincing myself it was just a phase. But deep down, I knew better. My home didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like I was living with a stranger. At first, I told myself I was overthinking things. People get busy, right? Work stress, mental exhaustion. I tried to believe that, but then little things started adding up. She used to be excited when I came home. I'd walk in, and she'd greet me with a smile that made me feel like the most important person in the world. But lately, nothing. I'd walk in, and she wouldn't even look up from her phone. She used to be present, but now she was always too busy. Too busy to talk, too busy to eat with me and the kids. Yet, somehow, she was never too busy to laugh at her phone. Every dinner, she had it next to her plate, her face lit up by whatever funny thing she had to see. I'd ask, "Who's so funny?" and she'd give me a lazy, dismissive, just a friend line. I tried to stay calm. I didn't want to be the paranoid, insecure husband. But it was hard to stay collected when your wife was sneaking off to run errands at odd hours or stepping outside to take calls. She didn't even try to hide it. No explanations. Just, "I'll be back." And every time she came back, it felt like I lost a little more of her. I wasn't naive. I saw it. I felt it. My wife was still here, but her heart and mind were elsewhere, or worse, with someone else. I didn't think things could get worse until she started giving me the silent treatment. Not the "I'm mad and need space" kind, but the cold, full-on invisibility kind. It was like I was a ghost in my own house. It started that morning. I said good morning, like I always did. Nothing, not even a glance. I thought maybe she was in a mood, so I gave her space. Hours passed. I asked if she wanted breakfast. Silence. I asked if she was feeling okay. Silence. By noon, I was sitting there, watching her scroll through her phone as if I didn't exist. It wasn't just silence. It was deliberate silence. I tested it. I sent her a text from across the room. "Are you mad at me?" I watched her read it. She didn't respond. Not a flicker of emotion. She just scrolled past it like it was a spam message. By evening, I stopped trying. I sat there with the kids, helping them with their homework, while she walked past us like we weren't even there. No good night. No see you tomorrow. Nothing. That's when it hit me. I was no longer her husband. I was just there. And if she could act like I didn't exist, maybe it was time I showed her what real absence felt like. That night, I sat on the edge of the bed, watching her sleep. Her face was buried in her pillow like everything was fine, like she hadn't ignored me all day. I could hear her slow, steady breathing, peaceful, unbothered, like she hadn't made me feel invisible in my own home. I watched her for a while, and something inside me shifted. I wasn't angry anymore. I was calm, too calm. That kind of calm you feel just before making a decision you know you'll never take back. I glanced at the kids' room. They were asleep, tucked in, with no worries in the world. And that's when I knew. I wasn't going to let them grow up thinking this was normal. I wouldn't let them believe that silence equals love, or that being ignored is something you just accept. If she wanted to act like we didn't exist, I was going to show her what that really felt like. I moved quietly, no sudden movements, no noise. I pulled out the suitcase I had hidden in the garage, the one I bought months ago, just in case. Guess that just-in-case moment had finally arrived. I packed essentials for the kids, clothes, shoes, their favorite toys. I grabbed my own things too, but only what I needed. No extras, no clutter. I wasn't coming back for anything. A clean break. By 3 a.m., I had everything packed. I didn't leave a note. Notes are for people who deserve explanations. I just took one last look at her, still sleeping, like she owned the world, and I walked out. I locked the door behind me. The sound of the lock clicking felt final. It felt like freedom. The kids woke up as I buckled them into the car. My youngest rubbed her eyes and mumbled, "Where are we going, Daddy?" I smiled at her, kissed her forehead, and said, "Somewhere better, baby." I started the engine, turned off my phone, and drove. No GPS, no plan, just forward. I can only imagine what it was like for her that morning. She probably woke up slowly, stretching like she had all the time in the world. No rush, no urgency. She probably reached for her phone first. The same phone she couldn't put down long enough to say goodnight to me or good morning to her kids. But this time, the house felt different, quieter than usual. No sounds of cartoons, no laughter from the kids, no smell of breakfast. Just silence. The kind of silence that makes your heart race before you even know why. I bet she called out, "Babes?" Nothing. The kids? Still nothing. Maybe she assumed we had gone out for an early errand. Friends, maybe? Yeah, that's what she probably told herself. But I know how her mind works. Minutes passed. Her calls to my phone went straight to voicemail. No read receipts on her texts. By now, her heart was probably pounding. A kind of anxious panic that builds slowly but all at once. She must have run to the kids' room, expecting to see them playing or still asleep. But there was nothing. No toys on the floor, closets half empty, drawers open. Panic turned into full-blown fear. I bet she called her mom first, then her friends. "Have you seen them?" I could hear the desperation in her voice. I wonder if she realized it yet, that I was doing to her exactly what she had done to me. Ignoring, dismissing, disappearing. Her calls probably came faster, 10, 20, 30 missed calls. I didn't answer a single one. I pictured her pacing the living room. Phone pressed to her ear, tears streaming down her face. "Please just answer," she probably whispered, like it would make a difference. But I wasn't there. She had ignored me for 24 hours, and now it was time for her to feel what it was like to be invisible. And unlike her, I didn't need a phone to do it. After a full morning of pacing, calling, and checking every possible place I could have gone, she finally broke. Not the quiet kind of breakdown, no. This was frantic, ugly. The kind where you call everyone you've ever known, asking them to please check if I'm there. She probably called her mom 5 times, her friends too, but no one had answers because I hadn't told anyone where I was going. That's when she called the police. I could almost hear her voice in my head. "My husband's gone. He took my kids. I think he kidnapped them." I bet she expected sirens, detectives, a full investigation, like on TV. But that's not how it works. The moment she said husband, the cops probably told her, "Ma'am, he's their father." Unless there's a court order, it's not kidnapping. I wish I could have seen her face when she realized there was nothing they could do. She wasn't in control anymore. So, what did she do next? She sat down, overwhelmed, and scrolled through her phone, the same phone that had stolen all her attention. I wonder if she felt foolish when she saw his name at the top of her message threads. All those hidden conversations, the jokes, and the messages she forgot to delete. I can only imagine how she read them differently this time. Every LOL probably stung like a slap, and every heart emoji felt like a betrayal. And that's the part one wanted her to feel. Not the silence, Not the disappearance, but the realization, the moment she glanced at those texts and understood. This is why he left me. She had no one to blame but herself. I pictured her sitting there, phone in hand, tears dripping onto the screen, rereading every message she swore I would never see. But I didn't need to see them. I already knew. She knew it too. And for the first time in a long while, she couldn't escape it. Revenge doesn't need to be loud or chaotic. Sometimes, the quietest moves have the biggest impact. That's what I realized as I sat in that small rental house with my kids, watching cartoons like any other Saturday morning. They were laughing, eating cereal, completely unaware of the storm brewing. Meanwhile, my phone was lighting up. I had it on silent but still checked. 43 missed calls, 27 text messages. The first few were normal. Where are you? Then came the guilt trips. How could you do this to me? And my personal favorite, you're hurting the kids. Oh, now she cares about the kids. Interesting. I didn't reply. By mid-afternoon, the messages changed, apologies, voice notes of her sobbing, saying she was sorry for everything. I bet she was sitting on the couch, facing her hands, tears soaking her palms. I didn't feel sorry for her, not for a second. If she had cared about us, she would have noticed when I was the one feeling invisible, but she didn't. I posted one simple message on social media. Sometimes silence is the loudest answer. Prioritize what matters before it's gone. I knew she saw it. I knew it hit her like a punch to the chest. A few minutes later, more missed calls, more texts. She knew it was about her. Everyone else did too. I sat back, phone in my lap, watching it light up over and over. I didn't answer a single call. Revenge wasn't about yelling or exposing her. It wasn't about telling people she cheated. It was about control, and for once, I had it. Every second of silence was another crack in her pride. I knew it, and she knew it. That felt better than any argument I could have won. I knew it was only a matter of time before she'd find me. People like her don't quit until they feel like they're back in control. It took her about a week. 7 whole days of her calling, crying, and probably losing sleep. I could almost hear her heart racing with every missed call she sent, but I never picked up. Not once. I wanted her to feel it, every second of it. When she finally showed up at my sister's house, I was ready. I opened the door, and there she was, eyes swollen, hair a mess, like she'd been running on nothing but regret. She tried to walk past me, like she still had that kind of power. I didn't move. She froze. "Where are my kids?" she asked, her voice cracking, on the verge of breaking down. "Safe," I replied, folding my arms. Something you wouldn't understand. That hit her. I saw it in her eyes. Tears welled up instantly, but I didn't budge. She tried to play innocent. "I just want to fix this. I love you. I love our family." She reached for my hand, but I stepped back. "Love." I laughed, but it wasn't a happy laugh. It was the kind that makes people uncomfortable. "You ignored me for 24 hours, acted like I didn't exist. No love in that." Her tears flowed freely now. I was stressed. "I made mistakes, okay?" she stammered. I tilted my head, looking at her like she was a puzzle I had already solved. "Mistakes? Were they mistakes when you were texting him, smiling at your phone while your family sat right in front of you?" Her face dropped, like I'd ripped the ground from beneath her. "Well," she stammered. Her voice, once full of pride, was gone. "You think I didn't know?" I leaned in close enough for her to feel the weight of every word. "I knew. I've known for weeks, but I let you keep digging that hole." She shook her head, as if denial could erase it all. "It wasn't like that. I swear it wasn't." I cut her off. "Don't lie to me, not now. I know everything." I pulled out my phone and scrolled through dates, times, messages, pictures. I didn't need a private investigator. She made it easy. Easy. Her knees buckled, and she sat on the porch, like the weight of it all had crushed her. I looked down at her, no anger, no hate, just done. I'm not here to argue, I said, stepping past her. I just wanted you to see what it feels like to be ignored, to have no control, to feel powerless. Enjoy it. You earned it. I left her there, head in her hands, sobbing into her own mistakes. You know that moment when you realize you're not the one chasing anymore? That's where I was. The power had shifted, and this time I wasn't handing it back. Weeks later, she sat across from me in a small cafe we agreed to meet at. She looked smaller somehow, not the bold, confident woman I married. Her eyes stayed low, fingers twisting the napkin in front of her. Good. Let her feel it. I'm glad you came, she said, her voice soft, like she was trying to be delicate. Too late for that, I replied, leaning back in my chair. I didn't rush the conversation. I sipped my coffee slowly, letting the silence stretch long enough for her to squirm in it. She hated that. She used to do it to me. Funny how it feels when the roles reverse. I just want to fix things, she finally said, looking up at me with those teary eyes. I messed up. I know that, but I'm ready to do whatever it takes. I tilted my head, watching her like she was a TV show I'd already seen. You're ready to do whatever, huh? I tapped the table with my fingers. All right, let's start with honesty. Tell me about him. Her eyes darted away, like I'd slapped her. There's no him, she muttered, but her voice cracked. She knew I knew. Wrong answer, I said, leaning forward. See, I'm past the point of playing dumb. I know about the calls, the texts, the meetups. You thought you were slick, but you forgot one thing. I pay attention. Just stop talking about it, she said, her whole face crumpled. Tears coming fast, hands shaking like she wanted to grab me but knew better. It wasn't like that, she said, her voice trembling. It didn't mean anything. Didn't mean anything? I leaned in close, locking eyes with her. You risked our family for something that didn't mean anything? I shook my head slowly. Nah, you don't get to play victim now. Her tears turned into full sobs. People in the cafe started glancing over, but I didn't care. I nodded toward the kids' photos I'd set on the table. I'm doing this for them, I said. You want this family back? Prove it. Her head shot up. I will. I'll do whatever it takes. I stood up, tossing a few bills on the table. We'll see, I said, turning toward the door. But this time, I'm not the one chasing you. I left her there, sitting in her guilt, with the weight of every lie she told pressing down on her. That's what real power feels like. It's funny how peaceful silence feels after chaos. No yelling, no silent treatments, no guessing games. Just me, my kids, and a calm I hadn't felt in years. It wasn't easy getting here, but I'd be lying if I said it didn't feel right. She's still trying, though. I'll give her that. Every day I get a new message from her. I'm going to therapy. I'm doing the work. Please let me prove it to you. I don't respond. Not because I hate her, but because I've learned that sometimes silence speaks louder than words. The kids still ask about her. When's Mommy coming back? I keep it honest, but gentle. She's working on herself, baby. Sometimes people have to fix themselves before they can be good to others. They may not get it, but I know they don't. How could they? They're just kids. I'm not bitter. I'm not angry. I'm aware. I see things differently now. I see how much I used to compromise for the sake of peace. But peace without respect isn't peace. It's surrender. I'm not surrendering anymore. If she wants back into this family, she's going to have to prove she deserves it. Not with tears, not with words, but with actions. And until that happens, I'll keep moving forward. Without her. Without the lies. Just me and my kids. Living life on our own terms. That's my story. You think she'll ever get it? I don't know. But I've learned this. Sometimes the only way to get someone's attention is to stop giving them yours.